Welcome to Top Amazing Fact. Let's face it, no one's perfect, and we all make mistakes. Human error is inevitable, but some blunders are so massive they end up costing unimaginable amounts of money. If you've ever felt bad about a slip-up, these colossal mistakes will make you feel a whole lot better. Here's a look at some of the most expensive screw-ups in history that show just how costly a simple error can be. Number 10, Songu Bridge Collapse. The Songu Bridge, spanning the Han River, is a vital link between two districts in Seoul and a key route for commuters. But on the morning of October 21, 1994, this 3,805-foot structure became the site of a tragic disaster. As hundreds of people made their way to work during the early morning rush, the bridge suddenly gave way. At around 7:40 a.m., a 157-foot section in the middle of the bridge collapsed, plunging 65 feet into the river below, taking with it cars, minibuses, and a fully loaded bus. The catastrophe claimed 32 lives and left 17 others injured. An investigation quickly followed to determine what went wrong. It turned out that the bridge had already been the subject of complaints about its shaky foundations, which caused a disturbing swaying motion. The investigation revealed that the root cause was a construction failure. The steel joints supporting the central suspension had been welded with an incorrect thickness of 8 mm instead of the required 10 mm. This critical error caused the connecting pins to snap under the weight. Although the bridge was designed to handle vehicles weighing up to 36.3 tons. Much heavier vehicles, some weighing 47.3 tons, were regularly using the bridge. These combined issues led to a catastrophic failure that cost the State Council $185,000 in compensation to the victims, and an additional $2 million to completely rebuild the bridge. This tragic event stands as a costly reminder of how a single human error can lead to disastrous consequences. Number 9, Deadly Skyscrapers. In the spring of 2014, London's financial district welcomed a bold new addition to its skyline, a 525-foot tall skyscraper with a unique, curved design. Dubbed the walkie-talkie due to its shape, the building quickly gained attention for more than just its appearance. As summer arrived, Londoners began to notice something alarming: the south-facing concave surface of the tower was acting like a giant magnifying glass, concentrating sunlight into a powerful beam that could raise temperatures to a scorching 70 degrees Celsius. This intense heat wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. The superheated rays were melting tiles, sparking a small fire on a barbershop's doormat, and even warping the body of a Jaguar XJ owned by a local businessman. One journalist even tried to fry an egg on the sidewalk, just to see if it was possible in the extreme conditions. The building quickly earned the nickname Walkie Scorchy, and something had to be done to fix this unintentional superweapon. The solution came in the form of a permanent sunshade, known as a brise soleil, which was installed between the 3rd and 34th floors of the building. This fix took 6 months to complete and cost over $12 million. A significant expense on top of the $250 million it had already cost to construct the skyscraper. Ironically, the architect behind the walkie-talkie, Raphael Viñoly, had faced a similar issue with another of his designs, the Vdara Hotel in Las Vegas, which earned the nickname Death Ray for singeing sunbathers by the pool. Viñoly later admitted that he knew the walkie-talkie might have this problem, but didn't have the tools to predict just how severe it would be. Maybe someone should tell him to stop designing buildings that double as superweapons. Number 8, Lotus Riverside Disaster. The Lotus Riverside complex in Shanghai was meant to be a showcase of modern living, but one simple mistake turned it into a disaster. The project included 11 new high-rise apartment buildings, but in the early hours of June 27, 2009, tragedy struck. At around 5 a.m., one of the 13-story buildings suddenly collapsed, narrowly missing the surrounding towers and preventing what could have been a catastrophic domino effect. Tragically, a construction worker lost his life, but the situation could have been far worse if the nearly finished building had been occupied. An investigation revealed that the collapse was due to a blatant disregard for construction standards and a failure to ensure solid foundations. The problem began when earth was excavated to create a 15-foot underground parking garage. The soil was then piled 32 feet high on a nearby riverbank. which couldn't handle the pressure and eventually gave way, sending water rushing beneath the building. These unstable, muddy foundations caused the building to topple over to the south. The worst part? This disaster could have been avoided entirely if the soil had simply been moved elsewhere. The fallout was severe, investors pulled out, demanding their money back. And the company behind the project faced total economic losses of up to $30 million. This included the cost of construction and compensation to the would-be homeowners who had invested in the $2,100 per square meter apartments. Number 7, Lake Pennor Disaster. In 1980, a drilling operation commissioned by Texaco led to a catastrophic chain of events that transformed a peaceful 11-foot deep freshwater lake in Louisiana, known as Lake Pennor, into a massive 1,300-foot deep saltwater lake. It all began on November 20th when a $5 million oil rig, operated by drilling contractor Wilson Brothers, accidentally punctured the dome of the underground diamond crystal salt mine. The mistake occurred because Texaco miscalculated their exact drilling location. What followed was a disaster of epic proportions. Around 13 billion liters of water from the lake began draining into the salt mine below, creating a powerful vortex. This massive whirlpool sucked in everything in its path, including the drilling platform. 11 barges, a tugboat, 65 acres of land, and even a small island in the middle of the lake. The chaos didn't stop there. Air escaping from the mine caused 400-foot geysers to shoot up from the lake. And the Delcombre Canal, which normally flowed out of the lake, reversed direction and flowed into the whirlpool. Remarkably, no one was killed in the disaster, but Texaco's reputation and finances took a huge hit. The company ended up paying $32 million to the Diamond Crystal Salt Mine and $12.8 million to a nearby plant nursery. In today's terms, this man-made disaster cost Texaco and Wilson Brothers over $140 million, making Lake Pennor one of the most expensive man-made lakes in history. Number 6, the Baltic Ace. Catastrophic mistakes can strike anywhere, as seen with the sinking of the Baltic Ace carrier ship, which went down in just 15 minutes in the North Sea on December 5, 2012. The 23,500-ton ship was lost 65 kilometers off the Dutch coast after colliding with the Cyprian container ship Corvus J. The disaster claimed the lives of 11 out of the 24 crew members and sent over 1,400 brand new Mitsubishi cars, bound for Russia from Japan, to the bottom of the sea. The wreck came to rest almost 100 feet deep in one of the world's busiest shipping lanes, creating a major hazard for marine traffic and posing a significant environmental risk due to the potential release of dangerous substances. To mitigate the threat, Rijkswaterstaat, a Dutch government agency, commissioned Boskalis and Mammoet Salvage to remove the wreckage. The operation started in March 2014 with the extraction of the remaining 540,000 liters of oil from the sunken vessel. More than 18 ships and 150 people were involved in the massive effort to remove the Baltic Ace. Given the extent of the damage, the only way to do this was to cut the ship into sections and lift the pieces to the surface. Beginning in April 2015, the ship was sliced into 8 sections using wire and brought up in chunks. Each section revealed the full scale of the disaster, including the bow filled with ruined cars. Dutch authorities were unable to conduct a formal investigation into the accident since it occurred outside their territorial waters. However, it's widely believed that the collision was the result of human error, with both ships failing to follow proper collision regulations. The enormous salvage operation alone cost €67 million, roughly $75 million today. When you add the loss of the Baltic Ace, the repairs to the Corvus J, and the value of the cargo, the total cost of this tragic mistake soared to around $150 million. Number 5, Mars Climate Orbiter. In September 1999, NASA's 638-kilogram Mars Climate Orbiter met a fiery end, as it approached its destination after a grueling 10-month journey through space. The orbiter was supposed to study the climate of Mars, but instead, it burned up and broke apart before it even got a chance to start its mission. The reason for this catastrophic failure? A simple yet critical human error. The navigation team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory used the metric system, working in millimeters and meters to calculate the spacecraft's planned altitude. Meanwhile, Lockheed Martin astronautics in Denver, Colorado, used the imperial system, relying on inches and feet, and failed to convert the measurements. This oversight led to a fatal miscalculation that sent the orbiter on a trajectory dangerously close to the Martian surface, just 57 kilometers above the planet. As a result, the spacecraft skimmed the atmosphere violently and was instantly destroyed. This simple mix-up between measurement systems caused the entire mission to fail, resulting in the loss of a project worth over $328 million back in 1999. Adjusted for inflation, that's more than $500 million today, gone in an instant. It just goes to show, sometimes it really does pay to stick to one measurement system. Number 4, the S-81 Isaac Peral. Mistakes happen all the time, and often by the time they're caught, it's too late to fix them. But that wasn't quite the case with Spain's supposedly state-of-the-art submarine, the S-81 Isaac Peral. Commissioned in 2013 as part of a new fleet for the Spanish Navy, the submarine had one major problem: once it submerged, it might never be able to resurface. The reason? A design flaw that somehow went unnoticed left the submarine about 75 to 100 tons overweight. This means Spain essentially built a submarine that only knows how to go in one direction, down. The culprit behind this costly blunder was reportedly a misplaced decimal point during the design calculations. That single dot could end up costing an additional $9.7 million per meter to extend the hull and restore the submarine's balance. Given that $680 million has already been poured into this one sub, and a total of $3 billion for all four in the series, this mistake is a pretty big deal. While the S-81 was eventually slated to join the Spanish fleet in 2020, it's still unclear whether it will ever truly see the light of day, literally. Number 3, Berlin-Brandenburg Airport. Berlin-Brandenburg Airport was intended to be a proud symbol of Germany's reunification after the fall of the Berlin Wall, designed to become the country's third busiest airport and one of the top 15 in Europe. With its sleek terminals, striking architecture, and even a fully operational railway station, it was supposed to be a bustling center of activity. Yet, despite all these advanced features, not a single passenger has ever walked through its doors. The airport was supposed to open in 2012, but today, it remains eerily empty. The baggage tracks sit idle, and a lone ghost train runs just to keep the air circulating. So, how did this project go so disastrously wrong? The trouble started with the global financial crisis of 2007 to 2008, which made it difficult to secure the necessary contractor and investor support. Various politicians then got involved, each with their own conflicting ideas, and they began using public funds to push their agendas. At one point, they decided to double the terminal's capacity, after construction had already started. Then, when it was discovered that the original design didn't include any retail space, entire new shopping floors had to be added. Even with these issues, the grand opening was scheduled for 2012. But just before the ceremony, it was abruptly cancelled when inspectors found that the entire fire prevention system didn't work. A detailed review uncovered a staggering 550,000 faults that needed fixing, ranging from the wrong light bulbs to improperly installed cables. As millions continue to be spent each month just to maintain the empty building, the cost of the airport has ballooned to over $6.5 billion, more than 3 times the original budget. This massive failure stands as a powerful example of what happens when poor planning meets political interference. Number 2, the Vasa. In 1624, the Swedish king decided to showcase his naval power by commissioning one of the most impressive warships ever imagined, the Vasa. This ship was meant to be the crown jewel of the Swedish Navy. However, what was supposed to be a proud moment in history quickly turned into a disaster. On August 10, 1628, the Vasa was finally unveiled to the public. Excitement filled the air as thousands of people gathered in Stockholm to watch its maiden voyage. But their excitement quickly turned to shock and horror. As the Vasa set sail, it barely made it out of the bay before a gust of wind caused it to tip over and sink, just 105 feet from shore. The ship that was supposed to be the pride of the nation was now lying at the bottom of the harbor, a colossal failure. The king was left humiliated and blamed the ship's designer, Henrik Hybertson, who had passed away long before the launch. The financial loss was staggering. The Vasa had cost over 200,000 Rexdollars to build, which was more than 5% of Sweden's total annual income at the time. To put it in perspective, that's the equivalent of spending $25.6 billion on a single ship today. A massive investment that vanished beneath the waves in a matter of minutes. The Vasa remained underwater for over 300 years before efforts to recover it began in 1956. The process of bringing the ship back to the surface was long and difficult, continuing until 1990. But when it was finally restored, the Vasa was displayed in the Vasa Museum. Preserved in 98% of its original form, a stunning glimpse into 17th century craftsmanship. The cost of recovering the Vasa was never fully documented, but modern estimates suggest it would take between $55 million and $110 million to salvage a ship of its size today. The most tragic part of the Vasa's story is that the disaster could have been avoided. Later studies revealed that the ship's design was fatally flawed. The gun deck was simply too heavy, making the ship dangerously unstable. Sale of Alaska Number 1. Sale of Alaska. If you're going to sell something, you'd better be 100% sure it's not worth keeping. Just ask Russia about the sale of Alaska. Back in the day, Alaska was owned by Russia and was a decent source of fur, tea, and ice. But by 1867, Russian Emperor Alexander II didn't see much value in holding onto the territory anymore. The brutal weather made farming nearly impossible, and Alaska's remote location made it hard to defend against potential invasions. So, Russia decided to sell Alaska to the United States for $7.2 million. At first, Americans weren't all that excited about their new purchase. But in 1896, everything changed when a massive gold deposit was discovered in the Yukon. This find revealed that Alaska was a treasure trove of natural resources, including vast reserves of oil and gold. To make matters worse for Russia, the exchange rate at the time meant they didn't gain much from the sale, just about an even trade. But the US has since made that investment back hundreds of times over. Today, economists estimate that Alaska's oil and gas reserves alone are worth around $200 billion. It's safe to say that this deal probably has the Russian emperor rolling in his grave. So, what's the most expensive mistake you've ever made, and how does it stack up? Which of these costly blunders made you facepalm the hardest? Share your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for watching.